Okay, everybody, so let's look at overlooking the River Stour. There it is, isn't it beautiful? Now, the key thing that we have to think about here is that what we are presented with will be a series of images. Each image in itself contains beauty, but as the poem continues, as we go from stanza to stanza, we'll see that that beauty will dissipate, it will disappear, and what will be replaced, or rather what will replace that beauty will be the negative awareness of the speaker. Now, if we think of this poem as autobiographical, what we can relate to our AO4 context assessment objective is the idea that this is a poem that is written in the latter part of Hardy's poetic life. Oh, that was a big pause. Poetic life. Remember that we know that after the death of Emma, his wife, in 1912, even though he married Florence, that lovely secretary, in 1913, he spent the last decades of his life lamenting the loss of Emma. And I think this poem can link to that lament, because what he realises at the end, as you said, Rebecca, in class, what he realises at the end is that he's been looking in the wrong direction. Had he not always been looking at the external world, trying to capture it and its beauty, then maybe he could have looked at the domestic world that he turned his back on, and maybe he could have found beauty there when it was there for the taking, rather than to lament its loss now when nothing can be changed. Okay, so let's go. Right, we've talked extensively about this in class. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Now, this isn't really... this is John Lennon, this isn't Thomas Hardy, but John Lennon and Thomas Hardy both have that same theme, that theme of regret, that life passes you by because you're busy doing other things that seem more important but aren't really. So really, when we think about this quotation, what we need to do is remember that Hardy regrets the choices that he made, that there's a real sense that he made the wrong value choices. And we get that exasperation in the final stanza with that sort of old-fashioned word, alack. But the key thing here, thematically, this is a poem about regret. Oh, I'd maybe want that in a darker colour. Let's go, let's see. Yes, okay, so it's a poem about regret. It's about missed opportunities. Missed opportunities. And they're the saddest things, really, to contemplate what might have been. And it's not until stanza 4 that the speaker truly realises what might have been. Okay, just again, linking to the AO4 and your autobiographical content, or your context, placing the poem in context. I think it's important, if we look at the first one, there is a condition worse than blindness, and that is seeing something that isn't there. So that's Hardy, that's what Hardy said. Both of these are Hardy. And in some respects, this poem is about the opposite. He saw things, and he saw things that were there, but he was blind also to what was behind his back. So that quotation is just a nice little quotation, but I'm not quite sure how useful you can make it. But this one you can make relevant to the poem very easily, because Hardy believed that nature, a soft release from man's unrest. And that's what he does. He looks out to the world to find that sort of release. He looks out to the world, so exterior. But what he finds out as the poem progresses, that nature, instead of being a soft release from man's unrest, nature sort of traps him. He becomes focused so much on the external that he forgets to look inwards. And because of that lack of introspection, he has missed the opportunity to find beauty elsewhere. So not just in the natural world, but in the domestic world. Domestic world. Okay. And then just to link to the idea of tone in the poem, Linton Scratchley, though I think there should be an extra T in there. But anyway, he said that Hardy could often turn a flashlight on, a flashlight is turned on for a moment upon some scene or upon some character, and in that moment the tragedy of whole lives and long fatalities of human relationships seem to stand revealed. And I think it's important, folks. Oh, I think that's a rubber. I want a highlighter. I think you think that here that this is a moment of tragedy, a moment of tragic realization that we have in stanza 4. Okay. Now, folks, we've talked a lot in class about the framing device here that Hardy uses. Ooh, that's thick. I'll go back to the wee thin one. We've talked a lot about that framing device, and as it says in your flirt notes, it's important because what the framing device does is it creates a frame around this little vignette, this little picture of nature that he can see out through his window. Remember, the entire poem is written from the perspective of a speaker looking out through a window, and this framing device creates that window. But also what it does too is it links to the central theme of this poem, which is about perspective. Perspective. That he spent so long looking out that he never looked inwards. His perspective was never internal, it was always external. And because of that, he's lost out on so much. So if we think first of all about the initial images, the swallows flew in the curves of an 8. And you've got that lovely image there of the curves of the 8. And what they do, as I said in class, we'll go for blue here, is they have this elegance and grace of movement that you have from the swallows. So we've got this idyllic picture. We understand why he was captivated by the beauty of nature, because the swallows flew in the curves of the 8 above the river gleam. And if you look too, you've got that lovely soft rhyme of gleam and beam. So there's a sense here. This is an image which is calm. Okay. There's a sense also to this beam and gleam. You've got a smoothness there. Everything that you would want from a release from man's unrest, it seems to be there above the river gleam. But what we see with the blue words, as we mentioned in class, you've got the encroachment, you've got that suggestion. Now, at this point, it is just a suggestion. You've got wet June, you've got last beam. So it is just the suggestion of negativity, but it's strengthened then by the simile here. So if you look at the simile, okay, like little crossbows animate, the swallows flew in the curves of an 8 above the river gleam. Now crossbows are weapons. They have the potential to cause harm. They're not innocuous. When you first read this, when you read the first 2 lines, it is innocuous, it's harmless, it's beautiful. It feels as if it's a scene that could help release you from unrest. But then the idea of little crossbows suggests that it's not as innocuous as it first appears, that there's a potential for danger. And at this moment, it's only a suggestion. It's only a suggestion. But that suggestion will grow as the speaker becomes more and more aware of how his perspective was wrong. That will grow. And then we return to the framing device. The swallows flew in the curves of an 8 above the river gleam. And we're leaving that stanza with the softness there of the long M sound and the river gleam. So we're leaving it on positivity. And that'll be interesting because when we go further on, when we get to stanza 3 and stanza 2, you'll see how that positivity becomes less and less. Okay, so then we get to stanza 2. Planing up shavings of crystal spray, a moorhen darted out from the bank thereabout, and through the stream shine ripped his way. Planing up shavings of crystal spray, the moorhen darted out. So the key thing, we start off with our framing device again, but this framing device brings contrast. You've got the hard connotations of wood, and then you've got here crystal spray, which have connotations of lightness, of brightness, of beauty. So you've got this idea of something functional and weighty and dense. Okay, and that's juxtaposed, our favourite word. Juxtaposed, our favourite word. The density of that wood, functionality of perhaps that description in relation to wood shavings, that is juxtaposed with something that is bright, that is light, that is beautiful. Beautiful. Crystal spray. You've got those nice little sharp S sounds. You've got little nice sharp sibilants. It's not jarring, it's not ominous, it's sharp and bright. Crystal spray. And what we have here is the idea that negativity is coming in, but it's coming in sooner. Now we've got just the suggestion of it in the first line. So we've got the juxtaposition, we've got oppositional qualities being brought into that first line. Again, how nature has oppositional qualities, how it is a beautiful thing, but it's also a trap that we can fall into. Then you've got the idea of the fluidity of the moorhen in its natural environment. A moorhen darted out from the bank thereabout. And also too, if you look at the enjambment here, enjambment, don't know why I'm singing that, I suppose it's because it's Friday. Okay, so if you look at the enjambment here, it gives you the speed of this moorhen. And there's a clear purity to that crystal spray as well, and to the stream shine. So that sort of crystal purity is there with both the crystal spray and the stream shine. So you've got the enjambment, the quick movement of the moorhen, planing up shavings of crystal spray, a moorhen darted out from the bank thereabout, and through the stream shine ripped. And it's that verb choice that brings the negativity home. But not only that, look, you've got a semicolon. So you've got that pause, you've got that dramatic pause there to allow you to appreciate that. Ooh, okay, to allow you to appreciate the impact of that ripped. Because ripped, with its harsh connotations, it doesn't seem to belong here. It's jarring. It's got that element of being discordant. And again, you have the realization, the growing realization of the speaker that things are not as beautiful and idyllic as they seem. And then, as we said today in class, look at the last line here, darted out. Ooh, I meant to highlight that. I'll try that again. Darted out. There we go. Super dupe. You've got those strong, harsh T sounds. So orally then, folks, what we've got is a mix of the soft M's of stream and shine, and you've got the sibilants of stream, shine and crystal. All of those things that sound that sound pleasing and pleasant to the ear. And then also, in contrast to that, darted out. And you've got those three syllables, darted out, with the harsh T. And so orally, you've also got oppositional elements. You've got oppositional elements through visual imagery, but you've also got oppositional elements through oral imagery as well. Okay, so then we get on to stanza 3, and the development, the sort of incremental developing perception, incremental development in his development in the speaker's perception is becoming more and more obvious, because the first word, look at the syntax here, closed were the king cups. And also too, think about the harshness of that on your ear. Closed were the king cups. You've got that harsh C, K and C. So what we've got there is those harsh, hard consonant sounds. That's quite hard to say. Let me try and write that. They're harsh. They're curt, aren't they? They're short, and they're blunt, and closed were the king cups. So if you compare that to stream shine and crystal spray, you've no longer got that pleasant oral effect, but you've got now this idea of negativity right here in the very first line. And also too, look, he's doing the same thing with the semicolon, creating that pause for you to acknowledge the impact of that line. So we start off with the verb choice closed. There's a sense here of exclusion. That even though he has spent his time devoting himself to capturing the beauty of this natural world, he's not part of it. He's excluded from it. It's June, and yet the king cups are closed. The mead is covered in what we presume to be rain. So nature has its own laws and patterns that he cannot actually engage with. He can comment on, but he's excluded from this natural world. And I suppose that's the main source of his sorrow, because his external perception hasn't actually gained him entry into this natural world. And what it has actually done is it's made sure that he's excluded from the domestic world that's behind him. So he's sort of trapped in a no man's land out of his own, a result of his own lack of value, that he valued the wrong things at the wrong time. That idea that he was busy making other plans and life has just passed him by. So closed were the king cups, and the mead dropped in monotonous green, though the day's morning sheen had shown it to be golden and honeybead. And again you have this idea too, if we look at the verb choice, dripped, negativity very clearly suggested there. But monotonous green is important, because nature no longer has the same it no longer holds him in the same, or he's no longer enthralled by it the way that he was previously. So the idea that nature no longer can offer him any sort of satisfaction, and yet the domestic sphere can't either, because he's excluded himself from that. So you get the sense of him lost with nowhere to go to see what could be valued or to find a place for himself. So you've got the monotonous green, though the day's morning sheen had shown it golden and honeybead. And the fact here that you've got a reversal of the framing device, the negativity of the first two lines and the last two lines trap the only positivity left, though the day's morning sheen had shown it to be golden and honeybead. And I suppose if you see that not only is a comment on the natural world, but it's also a comment on his life, that and perhaps his life, the speaker's life with a loved one. And if we see this as being autobiographical, Hardy's life with Emma, that the start of their relationship had been golden and honeybead. The morning, the start of their relationship. But now, when that relationship is over, there's no longer a place for any of those golden honeybead moments. That disappointment one feels when we thought that there was the opportunity for optimism, and then that's gone. And then, just as mentioned in class today, Isaac, I think you mentioned it, you've got the past tense of had shown. The opportunity for beauty, the opportunity for optimism, the opportunity for hope, that's gone now. And again, that links into the key theme that life is busy when you're making, or life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. That idea that missed opportunities, lost opportunities. And that's what you have here with the morning sheen. You also do have the idea that you've got a sense of warmth, morning, golden and honeybead. But I think that sense of warmth is gone now. It's closed off. And I think it's it's deliberate that you've got the semicolon to create a pause there, and then the next word is closed. That idea of the warmth and the optimism that morning sheen, golden and honeybead all present, that optimism is closed off to him now because of the decisions that he made, because of the perspective that he took on things and the value judgments that he made. Also then, to link into the beauty of what once was, you've got those elongated E sounds. How thick is that? That's so thick. You've got sheen, and you've got honeybead, and those soft E sounds also link into the idea of something lost. They create a tone that links into the idea of a lament for what once was, but is no longer there. Hokey cokey, let's move on. Okay, so then we get to stanza 4. Now stanza 4 is the end of this journey into introspection, and this journey to discover a new perspective. And what you have here is again the idea that negativity in the framing device has replaced the positivity that you had for stanza 1 and stanza 2. And immediately we're struck by the syntax choice here again, and never I turned my back, alack. And what we have here is the idea that regret is the key tone here. That and never, so it would have been and I never turned, but that would place I before never. So by giving never prominence in the sentence there, it's honing in on that fact that it never happened and he regrets that. And also too, look, we've now got to the idea of pronouns. Pronouns have arrived because now this is a poem not about the external but about the internal. It's about introspection. But the tragedy is that introspection happens too late. Like if you want to make a connection with an inspector calls, and sure heck, why don't we? When the inspector comes, what he offers the Burlings is an opportunity to introspect, to look at their lives, to look at who they are and what they represent, and to change, to learn from that. And that introspection, he gives them the opportunity for it to happen there and then, and for them to learn. But this introspection that our speaker has here, it has happened too late. He can only do it now, in hindsight, when it's already too late. And we can see that because, look, it's all past tense. I turned my head, but let these things hold my gaze. So the past tense, he doesn't have an opportunity to learn from the now. It's over. Whatever the opportunity was there, it's gone. Just like that golden honeybee morning, it's past. So what you have here also too, if you orally, if you listen to that, and never I turned my head, alack, while these things met my gaze through the pain's drop-drenched glaze, to see the more behind my back. Oh, never I turned, but let alack. So you've got these harsh sounds of alack and back, the repetition of alack, and that harshness is deserving because he is at fault. I suppose if you want to think of one thing for the speaker, at least he can understand that he's at fault, that there's some sense of acceptance of culpability, that he was at fault. And never I let my head alack while these things met my gaze. And as you said today, Ben, these things, that idea of litotes, that nature can be reduced down to that one little bit of understatement. These things met my gaze. And also then, if we look at that idea of separation, he's separated from the external world. We had that previously with the king cups. But he's also always, in fact, separated from the external world because he's always seeing things through a window. He's always distanced from them, no matter how much how beautiful they appear, and that you see in stanza 1. He's never part of that world. He's always distanced from it. But also you've got that idea that metaphorically he's excluded, because his sense of exclusion is an emotional exclusion. He emotionally excluded himself from the domestic world, and now he can go back there. You've also got the pathetic fallacy of the idea of looking through that drop-drenched glaze, looking through the raindrops on the window. So the negativity, the sense of despondency. Let's see, where can I write that in? Despondency. Okay, so the sense of despondency that he has is made clear through the pathetic fallacy there. And then you've got that term drop drenched. Now alliteratively you've got the DD sound, and it's quite clunky. It's quite harsh as well. Drop drenched glaze. So this isn't stream shine. It doesn't have the pleasantness that we had previously with the alliteration, but it's drop drenched. And again, orally links to this idea of the harshness. And I suppose the one thing you could say is that he is quite harsh in relation to his own culpability. He knows that he's at fault, and that comes through here. And then we have through the panes drop drenched glaze, to see the more behind my back. And again, that is such a key phrase, that to see the more, what the potential, and more, links to the potential that was there, the potential emotional life that he could have had, the potential beauty that he could have experienced in that emotional life, but he didn't turn to see. And again, I like that, you know, you've got your wee verb choice there, because this is all about sight and perception, and that he just didn't look in the right direction. And the key thing, if we think about culpability, how much he is to blame, if you look there, you've got the ellipsis. This is so hard to read, folks, sorry. Okay, but you've got the ellipsis because he can't actually, inability to articulate how profound of an error of judgment he's made. Oh, look at that, I've just written all the way through it. Maybe get rid of that for you. Maybe that's no good. If I go back over it like that, and I'll try the highlighter here. I wish the highlighter was actually in a colour that highlighted. It seems to darken it down a bit. Okay, but the ellipsis is important because it shows that inability he has. He can't really articulate how much of an error he's made. There's a sense that a guilt, and also of a personal feeling, and you've got that feeling, and you've got that through the pronouns I, and my. There's nobody else at fault here. It's just him, and I suppose in some ways that's a brave thing for him to realise that. That's just him, but perhaps there's a sense also of self-pity, and maybe you get it through these sort of old-fashioned diction choices that he makes. Oh, never I turned my back, but alack, repeated, these less things hold my gaze. And again, you've got that repetition of the litotes, less things, these things. And you've also got the contrast between more and less, what he could have had and what he has now. But there's a real sense now, I wonder, can I get rid of all these things and then write again? Okay, let's see. Okay. Pants on the stick. No, I can't. Okay, anyway. So what you have here is the sense of lament. I'll go to the next slide and see if I can write it there. Okay. So you've got this, oh no, what's it doing? Go here. Okay, you've got that idea of the lament that he has with the O, and also too with the exclamation mark at the end of the sentence, that he has that idea that the sorrow of it overwhelms him. He's overwhelmed by the sense of regret and sorrow for that missed opportunity, and it really just creates this poignant end to a poem which started off so positively. And I suppose that's probably an accurate reflection of his life with Emma, that it started so positively and ended so tragically for the two of them, that love that they both had and they both experienced was lost. The opportunities weren't taken for that to grow and develop in the way that they would want it to be. Okay. Now, a couple of things just to mention in terms of the rhythm and rhyme here, if we go back. Well, I don't know if I can go back actually, folks. I don't think I can. I might wipe it all off. But if we're thinking about the rhythm and the rhyme there, initially the rhyme's important because of what it does is it supports that framing device. It supports the framing device that you have. And again, that idea that it's about creating little images, little snapshots, almost just as little snapshots, little pictures of the natural world that become more and more and more despondent, because as he realises what he's done with his life, he becomes more and more despondent. And then, folks, you have to the rhythm. You've got use of enjambment there to create pace at times and fluidity times, but also with the use of rhythm, you've got that idea that the rhythm becomes more and more sporadic. Okay, it starts to break down. The rhythm starts to break down, and that rhythm breaking down, you could say, correlates with the idea of how his vision of nature as a place of release starts to break down too, because what he realizes is that he was wrong, and by realizing by realizing that he was wrong, the fluidity, the rhythm, the poetry, which is after all what he focused on, those elements of poetry start to break down as he suddenly realises that all that time he was just looking in the wrong direction, and he starts to resent the natural world in that respect, because it was a false trap, it was a honey trap, and he left the more and he valued the less. And that's the That's the major sorrow of his life. Oh, poor guy. Not really. Okay, so that's that.